Hey everyone, before we dive into this incredible story that changed my life forever, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. Seriously, pause for just 2 seconds and subscribe. This channel brings you real stories from real people, and your subscription helps us keep sharing these experiences. Thank you. Now let me tell you about the day a police dog saved my life. My name is Sarah Mitchell and I'm 32 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, where the rain feels like a permanent resident and the coffee shops outnumber the gas stations. I work as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm downtown, the kind of job that sounds creative but mostly involves arguing with clients about font choices and color schemes. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that I'm just an ordinary person. Nothing about my life was extraordinary until that October afternoon when everything changed. It was a Tuesday, and the morning started like any other. The sky hung low and gray over the city, threatening rain but not quite delivering. I'd woken up feeling slightly off, like I'd slept wrong or was coming down with something. You know that feeling when your body just doesn't quite feel like your own. I ignored it. We all do, don't we? We push through because we have deadlines and responsibilities and bills to pay. I grabbed my usual morning coffee from the cafe on the corner of 5th and Morrison, exchanging pleasantries with Marcus, the barista who'd been making my vanilla latte for 3 years. The coffee was hot and bitter and perfect, exactly what I needed to shake off the lingering fog in my head. The walk to my office building took 15 minutes, weaving through the morning crowd of professionals in their business casual uniforms, everyone moving with that peculiar urgency that defines city life. By mid-morning, the off feeling had intensified. My head felt heavy, like it was filled with cotton, and there was a strange pressure behind my eyes. I attributed it to stress. The Henderson account was due Friday, and the client had requested their 3rd round of revisions. I stared at my computer screen, adjusting gradients and tweaking layouts, trying to ignore the way my hands felt slightly numb. "You look pale," my colleague Jennifer said, stopping by my desk with her own coffee. Jennifer was the type of person who noticed things, which made her both an excellent project manager and occasionally annoying. "Are you feeling okay?" "Just tired," I replied, forcing a smile. "Didn't sleep well." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push it either. Jennifer returned to her desk, and I returned to my work, determined to power through whatever this was. Lunch came and went. I couldn't bring myself to eat much, just picked at a salad from the deli across the street. The lettuce tasted like cardboard, or maybe my taste buds were off. Everything felt slightly wrong, like the world had shifted a few degrees off its axis and I was the only one who noticed. By 2 o'clock I decided I needed fresh air. The office felt stuffy and confining, and I thought a walk might clear my head. I told Jennifer I was taking a break and headed downstairs, pushing through the glass doors into the cool afternoon air. The rain had finally arrived, light and misting, turning the sidewalks dark and glossy. I walked without real direction, just letting my feet carry me through the familiar streets. Portland's downtown was a mixture of old brick buildings and modern glass towers, food carts on every corner pumping out smells of ethnic cuisines from around the world. Street musicians played for spare change, their music mixing with traffic sounds and conversation. It should have been comforting, this familiar urban symphony, but today it felt overwhelming. I found myself near Pioneer Courthouse Square, the so-called living room of Portland, where people gathered to eat lunch, meet friends, or simply exist. I sat on one of the concrete steps, watching people move past. A group of teenagers laughed too loudly. A mother pushed a stroller, her child asleep despite the noise. An elderly man fed pigeons from a paper bag, ignoring the signs that asked people not to. That's when I saw the police officers. There were 2 of them, a man and a woman, both in the dark blue uniforms of the Portland Police Bureau. Between them walked a German shepherd, its coat thick and glossy despite the rain. The dog moved with purpose, its body alert and controlled. This was clearly a working dog, not a pet. I watched them approach, not thinking much of it. Police K-9 units were common downtown, especially near the square where crowds gathered. The dog was beautiful, I remember thinking that. Its ears stood erect, constantly moving, taking in sounds I couldn't hear. Its eyes were intelligent and focused. As they drew closer, something changed. The dog's entire demeanor shifted. Its head turned sharply in my direction, and it pulled against its lead, straining toward me. The male officer, whose name tag read Patterson, tightened his grip on the leash. "Easy, Rex," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. But Rex didn't ease. Instead, the dog began to bark. Not aggressive barking, not the kind that says threat or danger. This was different. The bark was insistent, urgent, almost desperate. Rex pulled harder toward me, his entire body straining. His eyes locked on mine. I felt a flutter of panic. Had I done something wrong? Was there something about me that triggered the dog? I knew K-9 units were trained for drug detection, bomb detection, search and rescue. What had Rex detected? "I'm sorry," I said, standing up, my voice unsteady. "I don't know why he's..." The world tilted. It happened suddenly, without warning. One moment I was standing, the next the ground rushed up to meet me. I felt my knees hit the concrete, felt the impact jar through my body, but it seemed distant, like it was happening to someone else. The rain-soaked steps were cold against my hands as I tried to catch myself. "Ma'am." The female officer, whose tag read Chen, was at my side instantly. Her hands gripped my shoulders, steadying me. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" I tried to answer, but my tongue felt thick and useless. The world swam around me, edges blurring like a watercolor painting left in the rain. Faces appeared above me, concerned strangers, their features indistinct. I heard voices, urgent and overlapping, but couldn't make out the words. Rex was there too. His barking had stopped, but I could feel his presence, feel his warm breath on my face as he pressed close. Through my fading consciousness, I registered Chen speaking rapidly into her radio, calling for medical assistance. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was a strange thought, crystal clear despite the chaos. The dog knew. Rex knew something was wrong with me before I did. Then darkness swallowed everything. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button. It really helps us share these incredible true experiences with more people. And don't forget to comment below and tell us where you're listening from. We love hearing from our community around the world. I woke to the harsh fluorescent lights of a hospital room, the kind of sterile brightness that makes everything look washed out and unreal. My head throbbed with a dull, persistent ache, and my mouth tasted like copper and cotton. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was or how I'd gotten there. Then it came back in fragments. The square, the dog, the officers, the fall. "Sarah. Sarah, can you hear me?" I turned my head, a movement that took more effort than it should have. A nurse stood beside my bed, her scrubs patterned with cartoon cats, her expression professionally concerned. Behind her, I could see medical equipment, monitors displaying numbers and waveforms that meant nothing to me. "Where am I?" My voice came out as a croak. "Providence Portland Medical Center," she said, adjusting something on one of the machines. "You collapsed downtown. The paramedics brought you in about 2 hours ago. How are you feeling?" 2 hours. I'd lost 2 hours. The realization was disorienting, frightening. "I don't know." Confused. Tired. "What happened to me?" "The doctor will be in shortly to discuss that with you," she said, which was nurse speak for. "I know, but I can't tell you." She checked my foreline, made a note on her tablet, then offered a kind smile. "Try to rest. You're in good hands." Rest seemed impossible. My mind raced with questions and fears. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them to distract myself, until the door opened again and a man in a white coat entered. He was middle-aged, with graying hair and the kind of face that suggested he'd delivered both good news and bad news more times than he could count. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Reeves," he said, pulling up a chair beside my bed. He held a tablet with what I assumed was my medical chart. "How are you feeling?" "Scared," I admitted. "No one's telling me what happened." He nodded, appreciating the honesty. "That's understandable. Let me walk you through what we've found. When you came in, you were unconscious and experiencing seizure activity. We ran a comprehensive set of tests, including blood work and brain imaging. Seizure activity. The words hit me like a physical blow. I don't have epilepsy. I've never had a seizure in my life. This wasn't epilepsy, Dr. Reeves said, his tone careful. Sarah, the scans revealed a mass in your brain. It's located in the right temporal lobe, and based on its size and location, it's been growing for several months, possibly longer. The room seemed to contract around me. Mess. In my brain. The clinical language couldn't disguise what he was really saying. Are you telling me I have brain cancer? We don't know yet if it's malignant or benign, he said. We'll need to do a biopsy to determine that. But the mass is what caused your seizure. It's been putting pressure on surrounding tissue, and that pressure reached a critical point this afternoon. I felt numb, disconnected from my body. This couldn't be happening. Things like this happen to other people, not to me. Not to Sarah Mitchell, graphic designer, coffee addict, ordinary person living an ordinary life. The symptoms you've probably been experiencing, Dr. Reeves continued. Headaches, fatigue, that feeling of being off, those were all warning signs. The mass has been affecting your neurological function gradually. How long? Yes. How long have I had this thing inside my head? It's impossible to say precisely, but based on its size, I'd estimate at least 6 to 8 months. 6 to 8 months. I thought back over the past year. The occasional headaches I'd blamed on stress. The fatigue I'd attributed to poor sleep. The moments when I'd felt slightly disconnected, like I was moving through the world from behind a glass wall. All of it had been the tumor, growing silently, invisibly, waiting for this moment. What happens now? My voice sounded small, childlike. We'll schedule the biopsy as soon as possible, probably within the next few days. Once we know what we're dealing with, we can discuss treatment options. Depending on the type and grade of the tumor, treatment might involve surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, or a combination. He continued talking, explaining procedures and timelines, but I stopped processing the words. My mind kept returning to one image. Rex, the German shepherd, barking at me with desperate urgency. The dog had known. Somehow, impossibly, the dog had detected what dozens of people around me every day had missed. Dr. Reeves, I interrupted. The police dog. The K9 unit that was there when I collapsed. Is it possible the dog knew? Could it smell the tumor or sense something was wrong? He paused, considering the question. There's actually been research on this. Dogs have an incredibly sophisticated olfactory system, and there's evidence they can detect certain cancers and medical conditions through scent. Some tumors produce volatile organic compounds that dogs can smell, even in very small quantities. It's not common, and police K9 units aren't specifically trained for medical detection. But yes, it's possible the dog sensed something abnormal. The thought was both comforting and terrifying. A dog had saved my life by refusing to ignore what it sensed. Without Rex's barking, without the officer's intervention, I might have collapsed somewhere alone, somewhere without immediate medical help. The seizure could have happened while I was driving or walking near traffic, or in any number of situations that could have been fatal. I want to thank them, I said. The officers and the dog. They saved my life. I'm sure that can be arranged, Dr. Reeves said. But right now let's focus on you. Do you have family we should contact? Someone who can be here with you. Family. The word felt heavy. My parents lived in Seattle, a 3-hour drive away. My younger brother was in California. I had friends in Portland, but the thought of calling them, of saying the words, "I have a brain tumor" out loud, felt impossible. I'll call my parents, I said eventually. Dr. Reeves nodded and stood. A social worker will be by to talk with you about resources and support. You're not alone in this, Sarah. We have an excellent neurosurgery team, and we're going to do everything we can. After he left, I lay in the hospital bed, listening to the beep of monitors and the distant sounds of the hospital, the muffled announcements over intercoms, the squeak of wheels on linoleum. Through the window, I could see the Portland skyline, gray and rain-soaked, familiar and suddenly foreign. I picked up my phone from the bedside table, my hands shaking slightly, and dialed my mother's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and unsuspecting. "Sarah, what a nice surprise. How are you, honey?" I opened my mouth to answer, but the words stuck in my throat. How was I? How did you tell your mother that everything had changed, that the daughter she'd kissed goodbye at Thanksgiving dinner 3 weeks ago was now lying in a hospital bed with a mass in her brain? "Mom," I managed finally, "I need you to sit down. Something happened today." And then I told her everything, my voice breaking, tears finally coming, the reality of it all crashing down like a wave I could no longer hold back. The days that followed my diagnosis exist in my memory as a blur of white coats, medical jargon, and institutional beige walls. My parents arrived from Seattle within hours of my phone call, my mother's eyes red from crying, my father's jaw set in that stoic way men of his generation handle fear. They filled my hospital room with their presence, their worry, their desperate need to fix something that couldn't be fixed with a hug and reassurances that everything would be okay. The biopsy was scheduled for Thursday morning, 2 days after my collapse. Those 48 hours felt like an eternity. Time moved differently in the hospital, simultaneously dragging and racing. Minutes felt like hours during the sleepless nights, but entire days disappeared into the fog of anxious waiting. Jennifer visited on Wednesday evening, bringing flowers and the kind of awkward sympathy that comes when someone young and healthy confronts the fragility of life. We'd worked together for 4 years, shared countless lunches and complained about difficult clients, but we'd never been particularly close. Now she sat in the uncomfortable visitor's chair, clutching her purse, trying to find words that didn't exist. "The office isn't the same without you," she said. "Henderson keeps asking about the revisions." I almost laughed at the absurdity. I had a mass in my brain, and a client was worried about color gradients. "Tell him I'm working on it," I said, then shook my head. "Actually, don't. Tell him the truth. Tell him I'm in the hospital and someone else will need to handle his account." Jennifer looked relieved to have a concrete task. We talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important before she made her excuses and left. I didn't blame her. What do you say to someone facing brain surgery? What words of comfort exist in that situation? On Wednesday afternoon, I received an unexpected visitor. Officer Chen, the female officer who'd been there when I collapsed, appeared in my doorway in civilian clothes. Jeans and a Portland Police Bureau sweatshirt. "Ms. Mitchell," she said tentatively, "I hope it's okay that I came by. The hospital told me which room you were in." "Please come in," I said, genuinely glad to see her. "And call me Sarah." She entered, looking slightly uncomfortable in the medical setting. "I wanted to check on you, see how you were doing. When they took you away in the ambulance, we didn't know what had happened. Rex was really agitated. He kept whining and pulling toward the ambulance." "Rex," I repeated. "Is he here?" "Not today, no. He's a working dog, so I couldn't bring him to the hospital. But I wanted you to know what happened after you collapsed." She pulled up a chair and told me the full story. How Rex had been doing routine patrol work when he suddenly became fixated on me. How the dog had shown classic signs of medical detection behavior, refusing commands to move on. His entire body rigid with alertness. Patterson, her partner, had initially thought Rex might be detecting drugs or explosives, but the dog's behavior was different from his usual alerts. "Rex is trained for narcotics and suspect apprehension," Chin explained. "But he was showing behavior we'd never seen before. The way he was barking, the way he positioned himself between you and the crowd, it was like he was protecting you and trying to get our attention at the same time. Your partner, Patterson, called for medical help immediately after I collapsed." "Yes. Actually, he called before you collapsed," Chen corrected. "When Rex wouldn't stop barking and you stood up and looked unsteady, Patterson radioed for an ambulance. It was already en route when you went down. Those extra minutes made a difference." I felt tears prick my eyes. A dog I'd never met, an animal following instincts I didn't understand, had potentially saved my life. "I'd like to meet him properly," I said. "Rex, when I'm out of here, would that be possible?" "I think he'd like that too," Chin smiled. And Sarah, I want you to know we're all pulling for you. The whole unit heard what happened. Rex is kind of a celebrity now. Everyone's calling him the hero dog. After she left, I felt something I hadn't felt since the diagnosis. Hope. Not about the tumor, the biopsy results, or what came after, but hope in the fundamental goodness that exists in the world. In police officers who take time to check on strangers. In animals who sense suffering and try to help. In the countless small acts of kindness that make unbearable situations slightly more bearable. Thursday morning arrived too quickly. A nurse woke me at 5, started a new 4, gave me medications that made the room slightly hazy. My parents appeared, both wearing brave faces that didn't quite reach their eyes. My mother held my hand, her grip tight enough to hurt. "You're going to be fine," she kept saying, a mantra she was trying to make true through repetition. "You're strong. You're going to be fine." They wheeled me to pre-op, where Dr. Reeves appeared in surgical scrubs to explain the procedure one final time. He would make a small opening in my skull, extract a sample of the tumor tissue, send it to pathology. The surgery would take approximately 2 hours. The results would be available within 24 to 48 hours. "Any questions?" he asked. I had a million questions, none of which he could answer. Will I die? Will I still be me when this is over? What if the tumor is malignant? What if it's inoperable? Instead, I asked, "Will it hurt?" "You'll be under general anesthesia," he said kindly. "You won't feel anything. When you wake up, there will be some discomfort, but we'll manage your pain." They administered the anesthesia through my 4, and I watched the ceiling tiles slide past as they moved me to the operating room. The last thing I remember is someone telling me to count backward from 10. I made it to 7. I woke in recovery to the worst headache of my life, which seemed grimly ironic. A nurse whose name I immediately forgot told me the surgery had gone well, that Dr. Reeves would speak with me soon. They moved me back to my room, where my parents waited with expressions of relief so profound it was almost painful to witness. The next 2 days were a fog of pain medication and fitful sleep. Well-wishers came and went. More colleagues from work, my brother who flew in from California, friends I hadn't spoken to in months who somehow heard what happened. Everyone meant well, but I found myself wishing for solitude, for quiet, for time to process what was happening to me. Saturday afternoon, Dr. Reeves returned. I knew the moment he entered the room what he was going to say. It was written in his posture, his expression, the careful way he closed the door behind him. "The pathology results came back," he said, sitting in the chair my father had vacated. "Sarah, the tumor is a glioblastoma. It's malignant." Glioblastoma. The word sounded like something from a science fiction movie, not something living inside my head. Dr. Reeves explained it was an aggressive form of brain cancer, one of the most challenging to treat. The tumor was grade 4, which meant fast-growing, invasive, resistant to treatment. The statistics he recited washed over me like cold water. Median survival rates, 5-year outlooks, treatment protocols. "We recommend a multimodal approach," he said. "Surgery to remove as much of the tumor as possible, followed by radiation and chemotherapy. There's a clinical trial at OHSU you might qualify for, a new immunotherapy approach that's shown promising results." My mother was crying quietly. My father had his arm around her shoulders, his own eyes wet. I felt oddly detached, like I was floating somewhere above the scene, watching it happen to someone else. "When?" he asked. "When would the surgery be?" "We'd like to schedule it for next week. The sooner we can operate, the better." I nodded mechanically. What else could I do? Refuse treatment. Accept death. I was 32 years old. I had so much life left to live, so many things I'd planned to do someday. Someday had run out. The week before surgery was a whirlwind of preparations. I met with Dr. Sarah Kim, the neurosurgeon who would perform the operation. She was younger than I expected, early 40s, with a calm confidence that was somehow reassuring. She showed me brain scans, pointing out the tumor's location and extent, explaining what she would remove and what she couldn't touch without risking permanent damage. I won't lie to you, she said. This is a difficult surgery. The tumor has grown into areas that control important functions. Speech, memory, motor control. I'll remove everything I can safely access, but there will be residual tumor that we'll have to treat with radiation and chemo. Will I be different? Yes. After the surgery, will I still be me? Dr. Kim's expression softened. You'll still be you. But you might have some temporary deficits while your brain heals and adjusts. We'll monitor you closely and provide rehabilitation if needed. I met with an oncologist, Dr. Marcus Chen, who would oversee my chemotherapy. He was in his 50s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and spoke with a slight accent that placed his origins somewhere in Asia. The treatment will be challenging, he warned. The chemotherapy drugs we use for glioblastoma are powerful, and they come with significant side effects. Fatigue, nausea, hair loss, increased risk of infection. But they're necessary to target any tumor cells the surgery misses. On Thursday, 3 days before my surgery, Officer Chen returned, this time with her partner Patterson and Rex. They'd received special permission to bring the dog into the hospital's courtyard, a small outdoor space where patients could get fresh air. I was in a wheelchair, still recovering from the biopsy, but the moment I saw Rex, I felt my spirits lift. The German Shepherd was every bit as magnificent as I remembered. His coat glossy, his eyes intelligent and alert. When he saw me, his tail began to wag, and he pulled toward me with enthusiasm. Easy boy, Patterson said, controlling the lead. Sarah, we thought you'd like to meet the dog who saved your life. They brought Rex to my wheelchair, and I reached out with a shaking hand to touch his head. His fur was soft and warm, and when I stroked behind his ears, he leaned into the touch, his eyes half closing with pleasure. This close, I could see the gray around his muzzle that suggested he wasn't a young dog anymore. How old is he? Yes. 8, Chin said. He's been with the force for 6 years. Best partner I've ever had. I looked into Rex's eyes, those deep brown eyes that somehow seen what no human could see. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. Rex's tail wagged harder, and he pressed his nose against my arm, huffing softly. It was such a simple gesture, but it broke something open inside me. I began to cry, tears streaming down my face, all the fear and anger and grief I'd been holding back pouring out in great gasping sobs. I'm sorry, I managed. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. Don't apologize, Patterson said gruffly. You're going through hell. You're allowed to cry. Chen knelt beside my wheelchair and took my hand. You're going to beat this, Sarah. You're strong and you have an incredible medical team. And you've got Rex in your corner. He doesn't give up on people. We spent 20 minutes in that courtyard. Me petting Rex, the officers telling stories about the dog's career, the suspects he'd tracked, the evidence he'd found. They talked about his training, his love of tennis balls, his habit of stealing sandwiches from Patterson's lunch bag. They made me laugh, which I didn't think was possible anymore. Before they left, Chen handed me something. A photograph of Rex, professionally taken, the dog looking noble and alert. On the back she'd written, "From your friend Rex. Keep fighting." I clutched that photograph like a lifeline. That night, I had a nurse tape it to the wall beside my bed, where I could see it first thing every morning. Rex, the hero dog, the guardian angel in fur who'd refused to walk past a dying woman. Surgery day arrived on Sunday morning. They prepped me early, starting at 6 a.m. Dr. Kim stopped by to see me before I went under. Her scrubs printed with cartoon brains, which seemed either perfectly appropriate or deeply ironic. "Ready?" she asked. "No," I admitted. "But let's do it anyway." They wheeled me to the operating room, and this time I noticed more details before the anesthesia took hold. The bright lights, the sterile instruments arranged on trays, the team of masked faces. Someone placed a mask over my face and told me to breathe deeply. I thought about Rex, about his insistent barking, about second chances and guardian angels. Then nothing. I woke 16 hours later. The surgery had taken longer than expected, Dr. Kim explained later, because the tumor was more extensive than the scans had suggested. But she'd removed 90% of the mass, which was considered an excellent outcome. The days after surgery were the hardest of my life. The pain was incredible, sharp and throbbing and constant despite the medications. My head was wrapped in bandages, and I couldn't move without feeling dizzy and nauseous. Simple tasks like eating or using the bathroom required assistance and left me exhausted. But slowly, incrementally, I improved. I graduated from bed to chair, from chair to walking short distances with support. I met with physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. I relearned how to do things my brain had forgotten, pathways disrupted by the surgery's intrusion. 2 weeks after surgery, I started radiation therapy. 5 days a week, they positioned my head in a custom-fitted mask and targeted the remaining tumor with focused beams. The treatments were quick but cumulative, fatigue building with each session until even thinking felt like too much effort. Chemotherapy started a month later. Dr. Chen prescribed temozolomide, pills I took daily that made me nauseous and weak. My hair began to fall out in clumps, clogging the shower drain, appearing on my pillow every morning. I shaved my head rather than watch it disappear strand by strand, staring at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognizing the pale, bald woman staring back. But through it all I kept fighting. On my worst days, when the nausea was unbearable and the fatigue pinned me to bed, when I wondered if dying might be easier than living, I looked at the photograph of Rex taped to my wall. "Keep fighting," Chen had written. So I did. Spring came to Portland with its usual dramatic flair. Sudden bursts of sunshine between rainstorms, trees exploding into bloom overnight, the city shedding its gray winter coat like a snake shedding skin. I watched the season change from my apartment window, marking the passage of time in cherry blossoms and daffodils. It had been 6 months since my collapse in Pioneer Courthouse Square. 6 months since Rex's barking had saved my life. The treatment was complete, the chemo finished, the radiation done. I'd graduated from weekly hospital visits to monthly checkups, my most recent brain scan showing no evidence of tumor regrowth. "You're officially in remission," Dr. Chan had announced at my last appointment. His smile genuine and warm. "Keep up with the scans and monitoring, but Sarah, you did it. You beat it. Remission. Not cured." I understood that. Glioblastoma didn't offer cures, only the hope of bought time. But I was alive. I was here. Against all odds, I had survived. The person who emerged from treatment wasn't quite the same Sarah Mitchell who'd collapsed that October afternoon. Physically, I was changed. Bald from chemo, though my hair was starting to grow back in soft, downy patches. Thinner, the cancer and treatment having stolen 20 pounds I'd never been trying to lose. A surgical scar curved across my scalp, hidden now by my growing hair, but something I felt every time I touched my head. But the deeper changes were internal. I'd learned things about myself during those months of treatment. I'd learned I was stronger than I knew, that I could endure pain I'd thought would kill me. I'd learned who my real friends were, the people who showed up when showing up was hard, who sat with me during chemo infusions and drove me to radiation appointments and didn't shy away when I was at my worst. I'd also learned about gratitude. Real gratitude, not the superficial thankfulness we throw around like confetti. Gratitude for morphine and anti-nausea drugs. For nurses who held my hand during painful procedures. For parents who rearranged their lives to care for their adult daughter. For a dog who wouldn't stop barking. I'd reached out to Officer Chen several times during my treatment, sending updates, sharing photos of my progress. She'd responded with encouragement and, occasionally, pictures of Rex. In one photo, the dog wore a comical birthday hat. His expression patient and long-suffering. "Rex's 9th birthday," the caption read. He ate an entire cake. Now, recovered enough to venture back into the world, I'd arranged to meet Chen and Rex properly. We'd agreed to meet at the same place where everything had started. Pioneer Courthouse Square. I arrived early on a Saturday afternoon. The square bustling with people enjoying the spring weather. Street performers juggled and played music. Families fed pigeons despite the signs. Everything was exactly as I remembered, and yet completely different. 6 months ago, I'd sat on these steps and not known I was dying. Now I sat on these same steps, alive and grateful and fundamentally changed. Sarah. I turned to see Chen approaching with Patterson and Rex. The dog spotted me and his tail immediately began wagging, his entire back end swaying with enthusiasm. They released him from the lead, and Rex bounded toward me, all 70 pounds of joyful German Shepherd. I dropped to my knees on the concrete, laughing and crying simultaneously, as Rex lavished me with kisses, his tail still wagging furiously. I buried my face in his fur, breathing in his dog's smell, feeling his warmth and solidity and realness. "He remembers you," Chen said, her own voice thick with emotion. "He's been excited all morning, like he knew he was going to see you." We spent an hour in the square, talking and laughing, Rex lying contentedly with his head on my lap. I told them about the treatment, the surgery, the long road of recovery. They told me about cases they'd worked, suspects Rex had tracked, the commendation the dog had received after my story made local news. "There's something else," Patterson said, pulling out his phone. "After your story got out, we were contacted by a medical detection dog training program. They want to study Rex, understand how he detected your tumor. They think he could help train other dogs for medical detection work." "Really?" I was amazed and delighted. Rex could help save other people. "Potentially," Chen said. "He's getting older, so he'll retire from active police duty soon anyway. This would give him a second career in a way. But we wanted to check with you first. Your story would be part of the program." "Of course," I said immediately. "If Rex can help other people the way he helped me, that's incredible." We talked about the program, about Rex's future, about the possibility that more dogs could be trained to detect cancers and other medical conditions before they became life-threatening. The idea that my near-death experience could lead to something that might save countless other lives felt like finding meaning in the chaos. As the afternoon wore on, the square began to fill with the dinner crowd, people heading to restaurants and food carts. The sun, which had been playing hide-and-seek behind clouds all day, finally broke through in full force, bathing everything in golden light. It felt symbolic, though I tried not to read too much into it. "I should probably get going," Chen said eventually, checking her watch. "We're on shift tonight. But Sarah, I want you to know how proud we are of you. What you've been through, what you've survived, it's incredible." "I couldn't have done it without Rex," I said, stroking the dog's head. "Without all of you. You gave me a chance I wouldn't have had otherwise." Patterson cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the emotion. "Just doing our job, ma'am." "No," I said firmly. "What you did went way beyond the job. You cared about a stranger. You followed up. You've been part of my support system through the worst time of my life. That's not just doing a job. That's being exceptional human beings." Chen hugged me, a quick, tight embrace that said more than words could. Patterson shook my hand with surprising gentleness. And Rex, my guardian angel in fur, gave me one last lick on the face before they led him away. I watched them disappear into the crowd, Rex's tail still wagging, and felt a sense of closure. Not an ending exactly, but the completion of a chapter. The story that had started with that insistent barking had brought me through death's door and back again. Now I was standing on the other side, changed but alive, ready to figure out what came next. Over the following months, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I returned to work part-time at first, easing back into the rhythm of deadlines and client meetings. My colleagues were kind, patient with my limitations, understanding when I needed to leave early because fatigue still hit me like a wall some afternoons. The Henderson account, I learned, had been reassigned. I didn't miss it. But more than returning to my old life, I found myself creating a new one. I started volunteering at the hospital where I'd been treated, sitting with cancer patients during their chemo infusions, offering the kind of companionship and understanding that only someone who's been there can provide. I wasn't a trained counselor or social worker, just someone who knew what it felt like to sit in those chairs, watching poison drip into your veins and hoping it was killing the cancer faster than it was killing you. The patients appreciated it. Some wanted to talk, sharing their fears and frustrations with someone who wouldn't offer empty platitudes or false promises. Others just wanted company, someone to sit quietly with them while their bodies fought battles they couldn't see. I did what people had done for me. I showed up. I bore witness. I reminded them they weren't alone. I also started writing. Not professionally, not with any goal of publication, just putting words on paper to process everything that had happened. I wrote about the diagnosis, the terror of those early days, the grinding ordeal of treatment. I wrote about pain and fear and the moments of unexpected grace that appeared in the darkness. I wrote about Rex and his urgent barking, about the chain of coincidences and interventions that had saved my life. One evening, I shared some of my writing with a support group I joined, other cancer survivors trying to navigate life after treatment. After I finished reading, a woman named Patricia spoke up. She was in her 50s, surviving ovarian cancer. Her eyes perpetually sad but kind. "You should share this more widely," she said. "Your story could help people. Not just cancer patients but anyone going through something hard. It's about resilience. About finding reasons to keep fighting when everything feels hopeless." "I don't know," I said, feeling self-conscious. "It's just my experience. Nothing special." "That's exactly what makes it special," another member chimed in, a younger man named David recovering from lymphoma. "It's real. It's not some inspirational poster with a sunset and a quote. It's the truth about what this is like." Their encouragement planted a seed. Maybe my story could help others. Maybe the thing I'd endured, this nightmare I wouldn't wish on anyone, could be transformed into something useful, something meaningful. A year after my diagnosis, I received an invitation to speak at the Medical Detection Dog Training Program's fundraising gala. Rex would be there, they told me, along with other dogs in training, handlers and program supporters. They wanted me to share my story to help people understand why this work mattered. Almost said no. Public speaking terrified me under normal circumstances, and talking about my cancer journey to a room full of strangers seemed impossible. But then I thought about Rex, about the gift he'd given me, and I couldn't refuse. The gala was held at a downtown hotel, a glittering affair with champagne and hors d'oeuvres and people in evening wear. I felt out of place in my simple black dress, my hair still short from chemo, barely reaching my shoulders. But when I saw Rex across the room, relaxed and happy in his retirement, being showered with attention by admirers, I felt my anxiety ease. Chin found me before I had to speak, looking elegant in a blue dress, off-duty and relaxed. "Nervous?" she asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "You'll be great. Just tell the truth. That's all anyone wants to hear." When my time came, I walked to the podium on shaking legs, looking out at the sea of faces. I found Rex in the crowd, sitting calmly beside Patterson and focused on him. "A year ago," I began, my voice surprisingly steady, "I was dying and I didn't know it. I was walking through Pioneer Courthouse Square, just an ordinary person on an ordinary day, when a police dog named Rex started barking at me. He wouldn't stop. He was insistent, urgent, desperate to get someone's attention. I told them everything. The collapse, the diagnosis, the surgery, the brutal months of treatment. I told them about fear and pain and the moments when I wanted to give up. And I told them about hope, about the people who showed up, about the small acts of kindness that made survival possible. "Rex saved my life," I said, my voice breaking slightly. Not just because his barking meant I got immediate medical attention when I collapsed, but because he reminded me, in my darkest moments, that there are forces in this world that care about our survival, that pay attention, that refuse to walk past suffering without trying to help. I talked about the importance of medical detection dog programs, about the potential for dogs to catch cancers and other conditions early, when they're most treatable. I shared statistics about early detection survival rates, about the lives that could be saved. Rex is retired now, I concluded, but his legacy continues through programs like this one. Every dog they train, every handler they educate, every person whose cancer is detected early because a dog sensed something wrong, that's Rex's legacy. That's the gift he's giving to the world. The applause when I finished was overwhelming. People stood, and I saw tears on many faces. After I stepped down from the podium, person after person approached to thank me, to share their own stories of pets who'd sensed illnesses, to express support for the program. But the moment I remember most clearly came later, when the formal program ended and the crowd began to mingle. I found Rex lying calmly in a quiet corner, taking a break from all the attention. I sat down beside him on the floor, not caring about my dress, and put my arm around him. "Thank you," I whispered into his fur. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." Rex turned his head and licked my face, his tail thumping against the floor. In his simple, uncomplicated way, he accepted my gratitude and offered his own form of love in return. Patterson appeared beside us, looking down with an expression I couldn't quite read. "He knows," he said quietly. "Dogs always know when they've done something important. He's proud of himself." "He should be," I said. "He's a hero." That night, driving home through Portland's rain-slick streets, I thought about the concept of fate. I'd never been particularly spiritual or religious, never believed in divine plans or cosmic purposes. But it was hard not to see something meaningful in the sequence of events that had saved my life. The fact that Rex happened to be patrolling that specific area at that specific time. The fact that he'd been alert enough, attuned enough to detect something wrong. The fact that Patterson and Chen had trusted their dog enough to call for help before I'd fully collapsed. Remove any single element from that chain and I might not be here. I might have collapsed alone or somewhere without immediate medical access. The tumor might have gone undetected until it was too late for treatment. In a very real sense, I was living on borrowed time, a gift given to me by a dog who'd refused to walk past a dying woman. The question became, what do you do with a second chance? How do you live a life that honors the gift you've been given? I didn't have all the answers, but I knew some things. I knew I wanted to keep volunteering, keep supporting others going through treatment. I knew I wanted to advocate for cancer research, for early detection programs, for anything that might spare others what I'd endured. And I knew I wanted to live fully, deliberately, squeezing every drop of joy and meaning from whatever time I had left. Because that's the thing about facing death. It clarifies what matters. All the petty concerns that used to occupy my thoughts, the difficult clients, the office politics, the anxiety about money and status and what people thought of me, all of it fell away. What remained were the essentials. Love, connection, ease, the simple miracle of being alive. 2 years after my diagnosis, I received the news I'd been simultaneously hoping for and dreading. My latest brain scan was still clear. 2 years cancer-free. Not cured, never cured, but surviving. Beating the odds. Living past the median survival statistics that had seemed so grim when Dr. Reeves first uttered the word glioblastoma. I celebrated by doing something I'd been planning for months. I got a tattoo. On my left forearm, visible whenever I looked down, the tattoo artist inked a beautiful portrait of a German shepherd. Not Rex specifically, but a dog that captured his spirit, his alertness, his protective stance. Underneath, in simple script, 3 words. Keep fighting forward. Chin came with me to get it done, holding my hand during the painful parts, laughing with me about the irony of choosing pain after everything I'd been through. When it was finished, she photographed it and sent the picture to Patterson with the caption, "Sarah's permanent reminder of her guardian angel." Patterson's response came quickly. "Rex approves. Wants you to know he's eating well in retirement and has gained 5 pounds. I laughed until I cried, imagining Rex in his retirement home with Chen's family, probably stealing food from counters and sleeping on furniture he wasn't supposed to be on. He'd earned every moment of that comfortable retirement. He'd earned the world. As I finished telling you this story, sitting here 2 years later, cancer-free and grateful, I want to ask you something. If this story moved you, if it reminded you to pay attention to the warning signs your body might be giving you, or if it simply gave you hope during a difficult time, please do 3 things for me. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We share real stories from real people, and your subscription helps us continue this work. Second, hit that like button and leave a comment. Tell us where you're listening from, and if you've ever had an experience with an animal sensing something was wrong. Share your own stories of survival, of second chances, of the moments that changed your life. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And third, the most important thing, pay attention. To your body, to the people around you, to the signs that something might be wrong. Early detection saves lives. Rex knew that instinctively. Now you know it too. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 34 years old. I'm a cancer survivor, a volunteer, an advocate, and a person who was given a second chance by a dog who refused to walk past suffering. I'm still here, still fighting, still grateful for every single day. Rex taught me that we're all connected in ways we don't fully understand. That sometimes help comes from the most unexpected sources. That paying attention, really paying attention, to each other can mean the difference between life and death. I look at my tattoo every day and I remember. I remember the fear and the pain, yes, but more importantly, I remember the kindness. The strangers who became friends. The medical professionals who fought for my life. The family who never gave up. And a German shepherd named Rex who barked at a dying woman until someone listened. Keep fighting forward. That's what the tattoo says, and that's what I do. Every single day I keep fighting forward. Not because it's easy, but because Rex gave me that chance. Because people I'll never meet might benefit from medical detection dogs trained in his legacy. Because every day above ground is a gift, and I refuse to waste it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And if you're going through something difficult right now, cancer, another illness, grief, loss, any of the countless struggles that make life hard, please know you're not alone. Keep fighting. Keep moving forward. Your Rex might be just around the corner, waiting to save your life. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. Tell us where you're listening from. Your engagement helps us reach more people with these important stories. This is Sarah Mitchell, signing off. Stay strong, stay vigilant, and never underestimate the power of a dog who refuses to give up on you.